LARP Salt Lake City podcast on Meet the Players, Meet the PCs even. And today I am joined by awesome human Justin Montague. Yay!
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Justin. I'm one of a lot of players over here in Refuge Salt Lake, and I'm excited to be here.
Justin, you've been playing our game for about 2 years.
Yeah, it's coming up on about 2.5 years now.
And you play multiple characters.
I do. Currently in Salt Lake, well, one of them is dead, but that's neither here nor there. But I've played a total of 3 characters in Refuge Salt Lake, and I have a number of characters in other LARP systems as well.
Your characters have kind of a wide variety. So can you tick them off for me in terms of like their name, their species, and like the most predominant feature about them?
Absolutely. So we'll start with my very first character. She has a whole title now. It's Warden Bloodweaver, chieftain of the Clan of the Rising Daystar. That's her shield back there and her big bonkin stick. And she's an orc fighter. She was my very first character, and she was very much leaning into this very wild and inexperienced character. I think my introduction to the game was walking into the tavern and just dropping a dead bear on the table, and then immediately marrying 2 of the other characters. She's currently at, I want to say 26 wives, about half of which are actual in-game players. So that is her. Counter to that, we have my second character, who has now moved off this mortal coil, rest in peace, was Lilinquist who was a Saladrin rogue with just a terrible French accent. The French accent did improve as I continued to play him, but he was very much leaning into that Saladrin idea of freedom and beauty. And he ended up actually having this very interesting character arc where we explored this idea of what it means to give up that freedom, to the point where when Lilinquist eventually met his end, he wasn't quite himself anymore, and he had practically given himself up to an outsider. And my current character is an Avani scholar. His name is Dr. Coyote Beyond, and he is one of the many sort of factions that you'll see in game. He is one of the brothers, which are a group of half siblings who all come from the same cursed dad, and he is very different than any other character I've ever played because he is so horribly anxious. One of the things that really gets me into the headspace is the fact that he stutters and he squeaks, and he is very much the opposite of what you would consider an adventurer, but deep down he is very brave, and it was just very interesting to explore that. And it's very different than any other character I've played, where he's just so anxious.
Without divulging anything that you don't want us to know about Yotie's build, what is Yotie capable of doing?
So he's a doctor, which he's a medical doctor, as well as he has about 3 levels in craftsman surgeon, and on top of that, he is a veterinarian. He has about, I want to say, 2 levels in trade surgeon, in trades veterinarian, and that's very interesting because he doesn't have a lot of weapon skills, which is very counter to, say, Bloodweaver, who can pick up anything and just start bonking with it. Yotie has a staff, and sometimes he can use a dagger, but not very well. But if there's an animal, or particularly if there's something where we need to examine a corpse or an animal corpse, then he is there and he can do that. I think one of the neatest things I had was when I was visiting another chapter and we just found this corpse, and I was just like, I have 3 levels in trade surgeon. Do I know what's going on here? And this plot member looks at me and just goes, he's dead. It's like, okay, thanks. And then he laughed and he explained a little bit more. So you can tell that this is what's happened to this person. They've been dead for this long. And it was like, okay, cool, thanks. And getting to use that was very interesting.
So you've played Yotie live, but not for our chapter, correct?
Um, Even then, live is a bit of a stretch. I played him in a couple digital events because he came into game in June of 2020 when we were all in lockdown. And so most of his interaction has been through digital events like Tavern Nights, as well as some tabletop events with other chapters, and of course our wonderful Discord RP channels.
Do you find, well, let me ask you it this way. Has your build reflected any distinction besides personality and what you want to do between Bloodweaver and Yotie, in that Bloodweaver, you knew when Bloodweaver was going to be able to be played in an in-person event, and Yotie hasn't had a chance to make an appearance in an in-person event?
I I would say so, yes. Particularly, I remember sitting down with the other moderators because typically, um, we don't have players bring in their characters into the RP chats until they've played a game. But when quarantine started and the future of LARP was just sort of some ambivalent date on the horizon, I sat down with the moderators and I went, hey, so this is something I want to do. And one of the caveats I made for myself was I am not going to allow myself is a weird word, but I'm not going to look too deeply into any plot points right now because I want to save that for an in-person event. And so what that has sort of translated to personality wise is that I've really been able to utilize this hesitance that Yotie has because he's horribly nervous, um, into being okay. I'm not taking any BGAs, any between game actions. I'm not researching anything. I am just here and I'm living in the moment. And and what's sort of funny is that it has led me to obtain more knowledge as Yotie than I did as Bloodweaver. Because Bloodweaver is very brash and she's very headstrong, and I mean, she doesn't stick around to find out all the details. It's like, oh, there's lizard folk. I'm going to go kill the lizard folk now. Whereas Yotie, he's been able to sit there and go, wait, why is this happening? And just be squeaky and terrible and get more information.
I'm so curious. As a performer for my day job, sometimes I find that like my sensory body response gets a little fooled by what I'm doing. And I'm wondering if you've ever made yourself anxious by playing anxious.
That's it's sort of funny because I've been able to recognize that like my body is reacting in an anxious way without me being anxious. Is that I will I'll be sitting there and go off on a Yodi rant where I'm just like stuttering in a mess and being like, "What do you mean Shrew's a murderer?" And I can just like feel my heart racing, but then like in the back of my head, there's still me there just being like, "Heh." So it means it's really easy to back out of it. So it's probably the weirdest character bleed I experience is that I do get the physical stimuli without any of the actual emotional.
Do you have any aspects of your kit, either Bloodweaver, Yotie, or even Lilinquist, even though rest
in
their soul,
peace.
yeah, that you could show us real quick?
Probably yes, right behind me. I'm gonna grab the bonk and stick.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask you about how that's not a technical term.
So this is Bloodweaver's bonk and stick. It is a mace that was I'm gonna kneel down here. So it is a mace that was made for me by a friend. And particularly one of the details I really like about it that we'll try to see on the camera here is that it is absolutely covered in gore.
Oh,
It is I mean, there's blood spatter and all sorts of wonderful things. But one of the best parts of Bloodweaver's kit is purely... Oh, my mic's over here. One of the best parts of Bloodweaver's kit is purely just how many weapons she has. Out of all the weapons I have on the wall here, pretty much she carries all of them. And that's very counter to Yotie, who has the staff. He has the staff and he has a little dagger, and that is it. And I think also that continues to add to sort of this narrative we have going, where Bloodweaver's first instinct is, if it's moving and it shouldn't be, we're going to hit it. Whereas Yotie very much is analytical. He's not a fighter. He is a toasty like 14 hit points, as opposed to Bloodweaver's like 45. And so his instinct is more to, we're gonna stay back. Probably another one of the wonderful things I love about Bloodweaver's weapons, though, is so that dagger there. The green one is Jade, and I got that in another chapter. And it was I want to say like my second game with Bloodweaver when I was traveling. And there was just this wonderful character interaction that I had with another player from our chapter, Dane, where one of Bloodweaver's narratives is that she's very frightened that she's a monster. And she's not. For all I talk about how she's very brash and outgoing and she likes to hit things, she really is a very kind character. But she worries about that. And one of the moments I had with that dagger was while I was holding it, after Bloodweaver had been enraged and nearly corrupted again by an outsider, and she broke like 3 wrists. It was not a great time for her. Probably not a great time for the people whose wrists she broke either, but they got better. It's fine. And she was expressing this fear to Dane's character, Aiden Corso, and Corso goes, "You're not a monster because you're holding that." Because Jade, in that chapter, was one of the things that really could hurt an outsider, and that just stuck with me. It's these beautiful inter-character moments that really make the character more than any piece of a kit does. But when you are building your kit, when you have pieces that have stories associated with them, then it's almost like you're armed with those stories, and I think that's wonderful.
That is a gorgeous thought, and so that is what I want to be the last thing that is said. Thank you so much, Justin, for letting me interview you today.
It was a great time. I should put these weapons back now.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.